most important thing. And when we talk about better, a lot of these same principles that we talk about basketball-wise, they transfer very, very easily over to life. And that's the most interesting part, is you learn these lessons in basketball, you have a better life because of it if you do things the right way. So that's kind of what my interest in doing this, and I'll give you the history of how we're standing here, or how we're sitting here today talking about getting better basketball. Give you 20 seconds about me. I played football in college, basketball and football in high school, loved athletics. I feel like athletics taught me a lot of things that helped me in life today that I can never repay the people that helped me. So I obviously like to do the same in return for other athletes, and I want to see people be better. After my first year of college, I was at Laney College. I was going into my second year, and I got diabetes, and got very sick, lost almost 30 pounds, and the doctor said, hey, you're not going to play your sophomore year, so I took a year off. And what I realized was some of the stuff that I was doing training performance-wise helped me with my health. And I also, in retrospect, learned that some of the things that I was doing health-wise was not helping me with my performance. So I feel like some of my decisions made me sick. And so one of my whys for doing this is I don't want any of you guys to make, and ladies, to make the same mistakes that I made. Hopefully you guys can do a better job, make better decisions than I did, so that you can learn from some of the mistakes and we can prevent that cycle of making the same mistake over and over again. After Laney, I wound up going to Davis, and I wound up going to law school. So I became a lawyer. I practiced law for 12 years. My passion has always been strength and conditioning, health and performance. I've always been interested in how to make humans better through different hacks. So after practicing law for over a decade, I was lucky enough that my wife was willing to hire me at her gym, and now I get to work for a reasonably good boss. We've got a couple of our coaches. Deanna's here, and Talia's interning with us as well. She's a strength coach at SI. And again, you know, for you guys, if I can impart a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of saving you spinning your wheels, that would make you know, that would make my night. So let's get started with the presentation piece of it. A couple of disclaimers, okay? Before I tell you anything, you know you better than I know you. So if, let's say, I say drink more water, and you know that that's not a good idea for you because somebody told you otherwise, then please don't do that, because you ultimately are the boss of you, and you're going to control yourself, and you're going to make the decisions for yourself. And then anything that I tell you today, I reserve the right to change my mind tomorrow. I'm not married to anything. I'm just married to the better way. So if you got the better way, I'm doing it your way. My way, throw it in the garbage can. And pretty informal. If there's something that you guys want to ask but don't want to ask in a group, obviously you can ask me. Robbie is also one of our coaches. Sorry to introduce her. That's my wife, Robbie. And she also does all the nutrition stuff here. She's a wealth of knowledge in that department. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight as well, and she can kind of dig deeper in if you guys have any more detailed questions that I can't answer. If you don't want to ask questions informally, you can interrupt me at any time. I will answer any question. If I don't know the answer to the question, I will tell you, hey, I don't know the answer. I'll go figure out what the best way to do it is, and I'll come back to you, and I'll ask the right people and dig under the right stones to make sure that you guys get the right answers. We also are lucky enough to have Dr. Chris Thompson, who's a kinesiology professor up at USF. Chris is also a wealth of knowledge in the performance arena as well. So we got some great folks in the house. If you want to put questions up onto the parking lot that you don't want to ask, just write a topic and I'm happy to speak on it, or just come see one of us, you know, informally afterwards, and we'll answer any questions. So let's get going. Okay. This just in. Basketball, really hard on your body. You need to train really smart and then hard to stand up to it. This is Tim DeFrancesco, who's the former LA Lakers performance coach. Very, very knowledgeable coach. You guys know this, but I see it because when guys come see me, I see how hard it is on their bodies, because I see other bodies. I see people that come in their 50s that have better bodies, that move better, that have better functioning joints than some of the basketball players that I see at 18, 20, 25. And so what we're not doing is we're not doing a good enough job at saving our bodies so our bodies can last longer and actually perform better. Okay? Let's talk a little bit about the nervous system. We're going to keep things super simple today. Here's what happens. You got this nervous system. You can run high on the red, okay? You can run low. If you run too low, you're probably not playing basketball, because basketball is a stressful event all the time. If you're running too high and you run the car too fast, something usually breaks. This nervous system is connected to something else, and that's your chemistry. The better you manage the nervous system, the better the chemistry will be. And what I mean by that is, anybody know Barry Bonds? He used to go down to see a guy by the name of Victor Conti because he wanted more chemistry, because he wanted to have better performance. Now, I'm not suggesting that you guys should go see Victor Conti, but I think that you have to understand the decisions that you make on this nervous system part impact the chemistry over here and how your performance will be. I don't want to dig any deeper into this. It's a very complicated subject. This is as simple as I can make it, but you guys have to understand and own this part of it. How to be better. Your number one ability as an athlete is your availability. If you're not available, I don't care about your crossover dribble, your 28-foot three-point shot, your alley-oop dunk. It doesn't matter, because when Coach Carl was telling me, oh, the Pro-Am team's going to win next year, and Tutu's sitting on the bench, don't matter, because he's not available, so I don't care how good he is. Once you're available, then I care about your ability. And we're going to talk about performance training, but performance without availability is worthless. Couple of common traits of success. What I did in trying to help you guys is talk to my friends who train pros. Guys at the Wizards, guys at the Warriors, former Philadelphia 76ers strength coach, guy at AS Roma who trained soccer players at German national team. And I'm asking these guys, hey, what do you see that are the guys that are elite? What are they doing? Well, here's what they're doing. They understand that quality is way, way more important than quantity. And what I mean by this, when we talked about the nervous system, we're talking about how, hey, I'm riding this high. And what I see with most basketball players is their nervous system's too sympathetic. It's too high. They're redlining their bodies too much. They don't know how to bring their body down so that it can withstand more stress. They're always running it at the top end. So real pros understand how to practice quality instead of practicing all day long. They understand the Goldilocks principle, dosage. Not too little, because that doesn't help you, but not too much. It's got to be just right. And you got to figure out how Goldilocks works, because it's super important. They're consistent, okay? They pick one variable at a time, they test it, and then if it works, they stay with it. If they don't, they make adjustments. We'll talk more about that. And the last piece is they own them. They're not listening to 79 other people. Yeah, they have advisors and whatnot, but the problem is Some of the guys at the highest levels, they have too many people in their ears, too much bad information. So you got to really trust in the people that give you advice. Self-improvement formula. You have to know, you own you, so you got to know how to improve yourself. Okay, number one is, there's a couple different ways to do it. Some people like to train what they're good at and get better at that. And then some people like to figure out what they're not good at and train that. Of those two things, and I could be easily convinced of either or, and we could discuss this, but from my money, the people that make the best gains are the ones that figure out what they're terrible at, and then they go and fix that. And here's what I'm going to tell you. 4 years ago, Steph Curry made a drastic change in his basketball game. What did he do? What was his number one weakness? And what did he do to fix it? Anybody know? His ankles, right? Yeah. So he wasn't available. He played 44 games 4 years ago. So as a result, for the 44 games, he got a $44 million contract for 4 years, $11 million. Now, the best guys in the business are making over double that. So they got Steph on the cheap. And what he did to fix his ankles, that's another interesting thing. And if you guys want to know about it, I can give you an article about it. But long story short is he got his hips stronger. He had surgery on his ankles. They have a formula that works now. And I know the strength coach at Santa Cruz, they were trying to figure out what the missing link, the weak link was in his programming. So they fixed that. So here's a great example of your greatest ability is your availability. He made himself available. So now all of a sudden we can talk about some other things. Then what happened is they came up with a strategy, and the strategy was, okay, I'm going to have ankle surgery, I'm going to brace my ankles, I'm going to get my hips strong, my core strong. That guy, Coach Nick, great to see you. Hey, great to have you in the house, period.
It was a game, I would have been on time. Just
yeah. So they came up with a strategy, they executed the strategy. He's played 81, 80, and I think 81 again. So long story short is the strategy is working, right? He did miss some games in the playoffs last year, but long story short is way better than 44 games. He executed the strategy. That's the third piece. And then what happened is they measured. Hey, is this working? If it is, they make it part of your habit. And then they go on to the next weakness. And so, he's just gotten better in so many different ways, from ball handling to defense to improving his body and being stronger, being able to finish at the cup. The guy's unbelievable. He's constantly reevaluating himself and figuring out what he can do to be better. And he's also really good at picking up things really quickly, so they solve stuff really fast for him, so he can just go on to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. So that's how he gets better so fast. But you got to know the self-improvement formula, because you're ultimately going to own you. This is the performance pyramid. This is something I came up with because I sat down with Coach Carl about a year ago, and I found that I couldn't explain to him what I do. I'm like, I do this and I do that, and I couldn't explain it to him. So I said, okay, cool, I'm going to put it down on paper. And I'm going to be able to show guys that this is what we do to make you better, okay? So take me as an example. Got sick, unhealthy, unavailable, can't play. What happens is most guys, they're up here and they practice skills and they do the skills all day long. But if you're not healthy down here, or let's say you're healthy, but your performance is needs help. You're not strong enough. You're out there playing against against air, and you're amazing. You get in the game, and it's a ghost. You don't see yourself in the game because you can't express your skills against other humans because you're too slow, too weak. And you have great skills, because I see kids, like a little on the smaller side, a little skinnier side, or they don't have certain physical traits to be able to express their skills, and you can see that. So this is how you build the athlete. You build the athlete from the ground up, and if you have this as your foundation, we're going to talk about this, then we're going to talk about performance, then we're going to talk about skill. Because if you put the roof of the house on first, Coach Nick will tell you that ain't going to work. He builds houses. He'll tell you that's not going to work, okay? So just real quick at the bottom, we're going to go through some of these independently, and I'm happy to share this with you guys, but on the bottom, there's breathing is the first thing, okay? Breathing is incredibly important. It's so important, and it's never coached at most levels. Breathing is the number one thing you do when you come into this world. It's the last thing you do when you leave. And if you don't know how to manage your breath for health and performance, you're really missing the boat, because what's happening is for every step that you take, your car's running at a high RPM. You're redlined in that sucker. So you have to know when you come off the court, what's your breathing strategy? When you're on the court, what's your breathing strategy? When you're on the free throw line and guys are taking a free throw, what's your breathing strategy? Before you even get to that, you have to understand that there's a certain type of breathing that is healthier for basketball players, for most humans, but especially for basketball players, to manage their nervous system. So that's all I'll say on that for right now. Nutrition. Incredibly, incredibly important. If you don't have your lifestyle together, don't expect the car to run and run the Ferrari hard if you're not putting good fuel in that sucker. So we're going to talk about hydration. We're going to talk about other nutrition stuff, and we're going to talk about eliminating the junk food. On this piece of it, Derrick Rose, I mean, unbelievable. Like, coming out of Kentucky, ridiculously explosive player with finishing skills and shooting ability and could guard. Broke down. Why? So comes out after the fact. So we're going to talk about injuries, but comes out after the fact that he had a big time sugar habit, and sugar weakens your tissues, the white stuff, the connective tissue, the muscles. So he's super explosive, and God gave him all this ability, but he can't harness it because he's putting bad fuel in his system. And I can't show you a cause and effect, but I can tell you that it didn't help him to eat the sugar at the quantities that he was eating it at. Okay, sugar is poison for athletes. If I could get guys to eliminate it, I would, but we'll talk about a reasonableness rule. So here's hydration. How much should you drink? What are guidelines for hydration? Anybody have any ideas?
They say 8 cups a day.
8 cups a day. Cool. Okay, look at me, right? I'm 200. Look at her. She's 250. How can we be drinking the same amount of water? That's the most absurd thing that I've ever heard. And you know, that's what's being promulgated to us as, so there's a lot of factors involved. How hot is it outside? How hard did I train? How big am I? Where do I live in this world? So, go ahead.
We had a game last week. It
Yep.
was like 100 degrees.
Yep.
And I had drunk like, I swear, I drank like 13 water bottles, and I still was dehydrated. And I ended up throwing up, and it was just heck of water coming out.
Yeah. Well, it's also because you guys were up in the Central Valley, right?
We in Pleasanton.
Pleasanton, right? So what happens is you take city people like me who live out by the water and it's like 60 degrees all the time, and you try to take them to the East Bay and run them hard. That don't work either. You got to train where you're going to play, right? But yes, that's a great point. So let's talk about this. So one of the things you can always check in with yourself is, when I pee, am I here or am I over here? That's one way to know. Okay? The other way to know, this is reactive though. This is after the fact. And one thing we're going to talk about is great athletes, they're proactive. So what do great athletes do? They have systems that work for hydration. So here's a system. Who struggles with hydration? You struggle with hydration?
No, I swear I only drink water when we have practice, and that's the only time.
Oh, okay, cool.
Like 4 bottles of water that day. In practice.
Okay, great. You're going to be my guy then. Okay? Okay. Here's a system. Here's a water bottle. You're going to need 6 peas a day, right? I pee once, I roll it up. I pee twice, I roll it up, all the way to 6. Okay, so that's one way to know. Then on the top, I drink one of these, I roll it down. At the end, all the rubber bands should be in the middle at the end of your day. Okay, there's your system.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so that's hydration. A rough guideline is half your body weight in ounces. Rough, don't, 'cause I got better numbers for you guys. I'm gonna give you something, but a rough guideline for normal humans, not basketball players, half your body weight in ounces without exercise, without taking into account sweating. A rough guideline. And again, it doesn't work for everybody, so that's why I hate those like 8-cup rules, half your body weight in ounces. Okay, this is my friend, Steve Harvey. You guys ever met him? Family Feud. The most difficult aspect of being an athlete is 550 athletes surveyed. What's the number one answer? Anybody? No?
Getting,
Hydrated.
Nope.
getting enough sleep.
Nope.
Getting injured.
Boom. Dealing with injury. Number one answer, 42%. It's hard. It's hard mentally, it's hard physically. And we're going to talk about injury and pain because it's super important and it's on the minds of a lot of people in this room. When you don't sleep 8 hours a night, you increase your likelihood of injury by 1.7 times. So that's a big factor. So put that out there for you. When you get hurt, this is what happens to your body. Your red tissue looks like this. You get hurt, it gets torn up. And then what happens is if you don't rehab it right, and I'll just tell you, there's